based. Yeah, yeah. So what a good week then, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, well, going down there was a big eye opener. I wish I'd gone a lot earlier.
Yeah,
And I'd wish I'd gone for the 2 days so that you could have a walk round on the first day, and then the second day you could have gone and sat on the meetings and chatted and everything else, because it was just huge. But what it did tell me was we're doing the right thing
yeah.
by helping people, because the big thing that was noticeable was the amount of young people coming into farming.
Yeah, it's very
Uh,
true. It's a shift there, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah, absolutely.
and I participated in they had a 1 hour presentation, and it was all about the safety culture within
Right.
the permanent. Yeah, so I sat in
Oh,
on
okay.
that, and at the end, I said, any questions, and I put my hand up straight away. And I said, listen, I'm from the security industry, but actually, what we're trying to do is very similar to what you're trying to do. And they were saying that they have problems with farmers not having a security culture, sorry, a safety culture
Yeah, yeah,
on the farms, and a lot of it is very much mirrored to the stuff that we see about the security, i.e.,
yeah.
productivity comes before anything else on a farm,
It's
and
very
that
true.
includes
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah, it's a good. Come back to it. I mean, it's a great. I mean, it's a great show, that Lambert. So this, obviously, I couldn't go. I couldn't go this time around, sadly. But last couple of years, I've been. I tell you, you mentioned the scale of the place. I didn't realize myself. It's absolutely huge, isn't it? And yeah, you need a day or two to go around just for the pure volume of the stands and that. Um, I last year I went a bit cheeky really. I piggybacked there's a brilliant guy. He runs a thing called Forces Farming, and his name's Jeremy Gibbs. He's a great guy, and it's a charity, and he gets people coming out of the military into farming, and he helps them and signpost people to jobs. And he was there last year, and he was doing a talk on I think it was mental health and well-being in the farming industry. And he was there with the Farming Community Network and the Addington Fund, and they had a stand, and they allowed me just to go and stand with them and join forces. It was really good. And at that time, I was like promoting my farm's health and safety courses that I'd recently launched at that time, and the amount of people who engaged with it was just phenomenal. That's why I was a bit annoyed I couldn't get down this year. It was a real shame because the timing of this initiative on the crime side, it's just bang on the money because everyone's talking about it now. Have you noticed on LinkedIn and all over there? Everyone, the amount of inbound messages and requests that I'm getting, no doubt it's the same for you good self, mate. It's just phenomenal. Can't believe it.
Yeah, it's quite ironic because I never actually went round and seen, because it was so big.
Yeah.
And I had them 2 meetings. So I met up with Gerard,
Oh, good.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and a guy called Frank Cannon, who's ex-RMP. And the last time I saw Frank was Kazakhstan.
Oh, right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and we were talking to Gerard about it. I literally did 4.5 years in Kazakhstan, nearly 5 years in Kazakhstan on another project.
Yeah.
It was a multinational thing, obviously, the Western security manager, working with an ex-KGB colonel.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
really, really good guy. And within 2 weeks of being there, I had to arrange a presidential visit, if that makes sense. And it
Wow.
went so well because, quite ironically, about less than a year before that, I was actually in Kazakhstan looking after a guy called the Aga Khan. So I met all the presidential bodyguard team because I was doing
Right.
one
Yeah,
to.
nice one.
Yeah, so it went really well, and the company were so impressed that I'd only been there a couple of weeks, and managed that they gave me a month's bonus.
Well,
Brilliant.
that is a bonus. I love it.
Yeah. So me and him got brought into a job in a different part of Kazakhstan because there was a massive riot had gone on, and the local Kazakhs had decided to take the Turks on, and absolutely went through this production unit, and anyone that was Turkish got battered. So they needed help. So I got called in, and Frank got called in working for Group 4, and they set up a massive anti-riot sort of organisation, which I totally disagreed with, because I actually thought that we should be downplaying it now. You know, that the incidents happened. Let's get back to normality, because all the Turks had been moved out. The problem child were now gone. So people didn't need to go through, you know, riot shields and stuff like that. So I didn't agree with the way the company was going with their security. So I tendered my resignation and sort of left about a month later. And that's the last time I saw Frank. But Frank's really big into, he used to be part of the Security Institute, quite high up, but didn't get on with a few people and left. So it was nice to catch up.
That's good. Yeah, nice one.
I'm not a big huggy fan, and he gave me a big hug.
You're like, well, get off me.
Yeah,
put me down.
I'm a shaky hand person.
Oh, who wants to get hugged by an RMP? Not me.
Exactly. Yeah. Last time I saw an RMP uniform, I was running away from him.
Getting hugged and kissed by a man in a red hat. No thanks.
But it was great, because then we sat having a coffee, and then Gerard came and joined us. So it was good to have a chat, and obviously your name got brought up and everything else. And one thing we did notice was the industry is very good at doing brochures and giving advice and stuff like that, but actually nothing gets done.
Yeah.
There just seems to be a lack of action, and that between the three of us, we came to that conclusion. That there's a lot of hot wind that goes around the industry about security, but actually helping the farmer on the ground is very few and far between.
I couldn't agree more, mate. That's exactly the thing, and
I
think that's why.
And the other thing that got brought up was actually, wouldn't it be good if we could get a criminal or someone of my ilk, really, that used to break into farms, but an actual criminal, because, you know, they've got a criminal. I don't have a criminal mind. I know how to break in, and I know what they're looking for. But if you actually got a criminal that used to break into farms, wouldn't he be a good tool to use?
I think so.
For farmers, for understanding that criminal mentality.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I bet, do you know what? I reckon there'd be people willing to do that as well, because, you know, people do change and people do turn a new leaf. And I know for a fact, you know, that Dr. Kate Tudor from up here in Northumbria University, in her research, she interviewed a number of people who were in prison. They'd been caught committing rural crimes, but her angle was all about not so much the modus operandi, but what worried them, what would put them off. And that's where that fact that CCTV, we don't care about CCTV, we don't, you know, we're not bothered about your alarm bells and all that kind of stuff. But I bet some people would be willing to talk, and I think that would be an interesting angle. The other thing that I think gets missed as well is, don't let me forget, I want to come back to that thing about people just talking about doing stuff, because that's really, really relevant. The other thing that might be really relevant is people often miss, if you think rural crime, people think, right, Johnny or Billy or Mary, they've had their tractor nicked, or someone's nicked some of their sheep or quad bike or whatever. But they're all right now because the insurance is paid out, which is normally the case. But I think another angle might be to get some words from people who've been victims, because it's more than that, isn't it? You know, they get traumatized, and the kids get scared to death when they go to bed at night now, thinking the bogeyman's coming to get them, and it has some massive impact. And I'd be very interested, if we can, to speak from the criminal perspective. I think that's a brilliant call, and then get some. And this is how it feels when you've been victimized, and how vulnerable and scared, and then there's all the disruption that goes with it as well. But
because people do tend to forget that the farming industry has got one of the highest suicide rates
Yeah.
And a lot of that will be brought on by,
Yeah.
outside influences and stuff like that. Farmers being put under pressure,
Very
and then
true.
he gets robbed, and all that. Like, it's just, it's just,
Yeah.
and I think walking around the LAMMA, really, for me, it was a blue light moment.
Yeah.
Thinking, actually, we are doing the right thing.
Think
This
so.
industry
Yeah.
does need help.
It's like it's getting to where getting the help to where it's needed as well, because people do a lot about real crime. There's a lot of insurance companies put out, you mentioned it, brochures and informational literature, and lots of statistics come out at the end of each year. But what I've noticed over the last 5 or 6 months of really studying these statistics, like your good self, well, they're not really changing. And you can guarantee, okay, so the next statistics aren't out, but I would be willing to bet a substantial sum of your money that it's going to be around 50 million quid. The losses is give or because it always is, and so that tells me maybe something else needs to be tried. Keep that going, keep that training, keep the brochures going, keep all that info and whatever activities are going on, but then just put another element in there as well. Ring fence the farmers, the businesses, train them, teach them. I want to mention a really interesting point that came out. So, we've had a number of people who've done our course now, and they're very kindly providing feedback. One of the feedback from one of the guys was, and this was a fellow from the Gendit network who did it as a volunteer. He put, "This is a good course. You know what though? It'd be better if it was face to face." I thought, brilliant. It is face to face, and so an opportunity here to mention, it is a face-to-face course predominantly, and you've been out there already, haven't you, Mick? And you've spoke to the farmers, and that you've had that fairly chunky group of people down at Eli not so long back. So this is worth mentioning again, and maybe you just reiterated what you tell them face to face, because it goes hand in hand. If you want us, we'll come and see you. We'll be boots on the ground. And if you can't, or you want to follow it up, then you can do the online course. But I think the face-to-face is that's the best way of training people.
I tell you what, it's because the third slide on all my presentations is that big picture with that picture in the background, with the medals on it.
Yeah.
About what your background is, because what I found, and this is teaching all around the world, that people are very skeptical about coming on to a presentation because they just think it's going to be another boring blah blah blah. And then as soon as you open your mouth and say, right, this is me, this is why I'm trying to tell you this, that, and the other, it instantly you get their attention, if that makes sense.
It does, and credibility.
In Rotterdam, I was teaching over there, and I just assumed that everybody knew me because I've been with the company for quite a few years. So I just, neglected to put that slide on.
Yeah.
And we were doing active shooter in a building, which is quite a violent, quite a grim subject to teach, because there's no nice ways of teaching.
It is what it is, exactly. Horrible.
Yeah, because ultimately, what you're saying at the very end of the presentation, that to stay alive realistically in an active shooter in a building scenario, you may have to kill another individual. Now that's fact. There's no two ways about that. So it's not the nicest subject. So at the end, I said, right, any questions? Trying to finish on a high note or a happy note. Any questions? And this young girl put her hand up. She went, "Excuse me, but who the hell are you?" Right. Doesn't know me, and literally half the hands went up because they had this massive turnover. And actually, one of the girls who was married to a military guy put in a complaint. Who's this guy teaching? Blah 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 blah. And I had to then go and meet her face to face to say, "Sorry, but this is who I am."
Yeah.
She went home and told her husband,
sure,
who's a military guy in the Dutch military, how grim this was, and he shouldn't be teaching that, and he shouldn't be doing this, and blah blah. Who is he? And then as soon as I met her and I explained and I showed her my background and told her, And she then went back to her husband, and her husband went, "Yeah,
Good.
actually, you don't."
Well,
And that just goes to show the importance of people understanding who you are and your background and what you bring to the table, and so why you've got
yeah,
the experience to try and
yeah.
help other people.
I think
If
it's
that
really
makes sense.
important, and that credibility is going to come to the fore going forward because, you know, we're talking to people already now about going out to places and talking to them about security, risk, and it can really widen the scope. Connor, you know, you've just mentioned a couple of other things that it's so okay, might not be related directly to rural crime, but those same people sat in that classroom are exposed to the potential for, you know, random attacks in crowds, random knife attacks, random gun. You just got to know what to do, and you got to know now how to react when the crap happens because we see it all the time, don't we? You know, the shootings, the stabbings, the whatever's there might be. Crazy, crazy world.
Some of the risk, and this is sort of, it's not a dig at the insurance companies, but it's a reminder, really, that some of the insurance companies, some of their risk teams that come round, and they do an assessment of a farm and, you know, point out the obvious and everything else. But do they do that late at night? Do they go to the farm at you know, between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning, sit there
Yeah,
and take in the whole atmosphere of what they, because a farm during the day is, it's like
yeah,
chalk and cheese. A farm at day,
yeah.
totally different environment at night time. And are they in that? And if the answer is no, then they're not really getting a true perspective of what the farm,
Yeah.
you know, what trouble the farm can expect at night time.
Yeah, that's very true. And you know, again, from comments that were going around last week, it came to light that you know there's a misconception about how criminals operate. And you know, I was talking on a post about people becoming the victim of rural crime and how and so how important this training is, whether it's the online or the face to face, so that we can develop that safety culture, so that all of the farm workers, all of everybody becomes like a roving set of eyes and ears. And one comment that I noticed said, yeah, but you know, that training's all well and good, but you know, when the crimes happen, there's no one around. You know, there aren't any people around, which may well be true. They're probably in bed actually, but you can get them before then, can't you? You can sort of nip them in the bud if you're aware and alert in the build up because they got to wreck you the flight. They can't just turn up round. They're going to look, aren't they? They're going to have a good scout around. So I was, you know,
Yeah,
and I know you were in on that conversation that trying to nip it in the bud before it happens. So, you know, being proactive, having that security culture just stops you becoming the victim in the first place. Doesn't matter when they're attacking you. They've already sussed you out. They've already checked your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. And I think that
yeah.
message got across that training is so important. Get your teams alert and you're going to be in a better place, aren't you?
It is, and with the industry, unfortunately, you know, like everything, this is what I explained when I was at the LAWMA,
Yeah,
to the safety people, that any culture in an industry has got to come from the top,
yeah,
and then come down, because people, you know, it's not a thing that you filter back up.
yeah,
And when I joined SBM Offshore, they had zero security culture, nothing.
well,
They just had two vessels attacked. Three people were killed. Or sorry, one person killed. Two people were taken
yeah,
hostage from one of their vessels. Then I came in and thought, actually, we need to change the culture here. So in the good thing, in the 15 years that we were operating there, we then had zero security incidents
yeah. Right.
worldwide, onshore and offshore. And the reason being is very good directors that realised that things needed to change,
Yeah,
and the way that they were operating was old school. They were being attacked offshore. People were, you know, very reluctant to travel to places like Nigeria, Angola.
yeah, yeah,
Changing that culture, so proofs in the pudding. If you can change a mindset, if you can change the mindset of one, the directors initially, you know, get the head shed on board,
yeah,
get that to filter down, and the whole system changes. it works. The proof is in the pudding. It does work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it needs everyone to
Yeah.
buy into it, not literally buy into it, but get on board with what
Yeah.
you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And that can come from the very top.
Yeah.
And I do understand that the farming industry has been, operating the way they've been operating. Old school farmers have got old school methods and that lot. But there are a lot of youngsters coming into the industry that really do need to have that security culture embedded when they're actually going through their training. So
No,
part of the
yeah.
should be security, so that they're thinking security. If it same as us when we do situation awareness as a military person, it's a natural trait. But for the average person on the street, it's not.
Yeah.
People need to be taught situation awareness, and same as security culture.
Yeah.
Once it's taught to you, it then becomes second nature. And as soon as you drive through a gate, stop your tractor, jump off, and then you go and lock it, because it becomes a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that really does need to change. But
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, there are ways of doing it.
No, there are, and I think this approach is a good approach too, because it can become a double pronged approach, because both you and I are working in security stroke safety, and those two very much go hand in hand. And all those things you've just been talking about, culture there from a security viewpoint, I see that on a day-to-day basis as I go about my farms and my estates in my health and safety world. And getting the buy-in, it's a challenge. I won't say it's impossible, because it's not, but it's a challenge, because it involves getting people or convincing people that a slight change in behavior and leadership approach now will reap benefits, and not just for that individual in the leadership position, but the organization as a whole, and then by default their families and their communities benefit as well. So it's again, often in the rural setting, as you well know, it's communities that get blighted by this crime thing. And it's the same with safety. Horrible incident not all that long ago. It was public press and all the rest of it, where a guy, it was the uncle, and he was on his brother's farm, and he's driving around, and he's got his brother's son sat on the outside of the tractor on the step, and he went around the corner and he killed him. He fell off and he got killed. And it's that kind of sudden impact. Bang, lives are changed, worlds are turned upside down, never to be the same again. That culture change, that kind of behavior, before that happens, no, stop, think, what could happen, what's the end result here? And that's the sort of challenges that I have from the safety world. But I'm very pleased to say it's changeable. People are open if the approach is right. And that's why I think this approach on our rural crime thing is, it's not saying to people, right, you need to invest £500,000 in some new CCTV, some alarms and some perimeter sensors and all that. It's be alert. It's quite straightforward, isn't it? Train your people, be alert. We've got to check. You've got to make changes. You might have to start closing your gates, locking your barns, locking your tractors, taking your GPS units off, blah, blah, blah. Simple behaviors that everyone can implement. But as you say, it's got to become the culture, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Funny story. So again, walking around the LA MMA, the NFU were there, and it was, their stand was packed. You couldn't get anywhere near them because people were talking to them, which is a testament really to them. However, the floor in there, they were giving away high vis vests with NFU splattered all over the back. So I got one. So guess what? As a criminal, guess what I'm going to be wearing? A high vis vest in a farm, NFU splattered all over it. No one's going to challenge me, and I'm going to drive off with something. And it's really that I know it's nitpicking and stuff like that, but people have got to understand that websites, groups, WhatsApp groups, farming, LA MMA. There are criminals walking around these places, looking at. They're doing their shopping list.
They are the clever, getting ready for Christmas.
Yeah, So,
Yeah.
all right, brand new, brand new tractor. Can you explain it all to me? How, and they're just taking notes, taking all the leaflets because they
Yeah.
know that that's going to be the next thing that they're going to be stealing. And so, giving away really obvious things like high vis vests to a criminal, you just but that really just told me instantly there's no security culture,
Culture.
and that needs to change.
Yeah, it's a whole, isn't it? There's a lot of different parts. It's like, so on our Facebook page, we'll occasionally put links into other people who've sadly become victims of crime. But what I've noticed over the last month or two is particularly trailer theft, when people are getting their trailers and horse trailers nicked. They're normally away at a show, or they're normally attending, say, something like Lammer or whatever it might be, but they've told the world about it. We'll be at such and such agricultural show next Saturday. Ding. I wonder who's on the farm then. Maybe nobody. So if I'm that way
Yeah.
inclined, I'm going to go and check it out, because it might be easy pickings. Might not be if people are trained and alert and switched on and everything's locked away and bolted down, and you can't get in for love and the money.
Well, I've got a motorbike trailer in the garden next to the garage,
Yeah.
and it did have the Harley Davidson. It's now got the Ducati in there, but there's a lock on the wheel, and I've taken the hook off, purely because if anybody jumps in, manages to get through the fence, it would be so easy to hook up.
Yeah.
And I know these security devices you put on wheels they are pretty good. I bought a really good one, but
Yeah.
there are ways around them. People bring an angle grinder, and they'll just shear it off,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, trailers are such an easy thing to steal, but even worse, very easy to pass on as well.
Yeah.
And that's why HMs, quads, and trailers specifically
Yeah.
are easy pickings for people because they can just pass them on quite easy.
Yeah. Worth taking a bit of time and effort to, get them properly secured. And even simple things like, it's a multi approach, isn't it? Where you park them, how you park them, are the gates locked, can they get them out the gates, that all those different things. Again, we saw loads nicked just before Christmas, didn't we? And one in particular struck my attention. I felt sorry for these people because, stupidly, it was full of their Christmas stock for their market. So the thieves nicked all of their stock and used their trailer to drive it away, which you could have written it. Actually, you could have. It's like it was a well rehearsed "let's help the criminals" scenario, because it was bound to happen. It was.
As soon as I read that story, I thought that's either really bad luck or good luck for the criminals, or somebody had inside information that they knew that was going on, if that makes sense. And that's one thing that really you should never negate, is insider, because the amount of contractors that work on farms,
Exactly.
go every 2 minutes. Guess what? They're a fantastic source of intelligence for the criminal networks. We'll just give them a quick backhand. When you go in that farm today, can you just let us know what you see? Blah blah blah. Fantastic.
One of the things that we always talk about, is so important, often gets overlooked. So on big estates and big farming operations, often one key fits all padlocks, or, as you well know, all areas. And so we always stressed, key control and key management, key inventories are so important, often overlooked. Give them to contractors, give them to clean, whatever it might be, and suddenly that control's lost, and all you need is that one key, and you've got access to wherever you want to go. Same with combinations. Often locations don't have a routine of changing the combinations and all the rest of it, particularly if staff leaving, and particularly if staff get sacked, or you've got a disgruntled person who leaves, obviously. But it's having that wider mindset, isn't it? It's not just someone might, let's just put a lock on the door. There's a
Yeah.
lot to think about. And again, interestingly, and I've added the comments to the landing page of the training course. People, two people in the security industry have gone, well, that was a real eye opener. Your comments about, well, no, seriously though, your comments about people breaking into barns. Well, they're not going to come through the front door because you'd probably reinforced it and you'll have a nice lock. So they just take the bolts off the back panel and surrounding off the bolts. And that, again, people have commented that there was these snippets inside that course that they may well work in that industry, but they just wouldn't have thought of that kind of stuff. So that's why I think it's starting to go down an absolute treat. But what I am looking
Yeah.
forward to, and I don't think the day's too far away, is when we're able to get out in front of people, joint forces, security on the one side, your good self, this is what it's all about. And then if it's a farmer or an estate, we've got that added advantage. They're going to get a real bang for their buck because we can talk about the same kind of culture as it applies to safety and risk management. And then you really got a better place to work. It's not only is it safe from a security point of view, it's safe from a worker health and safety perspective, and that's got to be a win-win situation. And they get to spend the morning with me and you, Mick. What's not to love about that, eh?
Well, I think it's all about making the farmers and the farm workers feel more important, if that makes sense. And if you can bring them into that culture, put an arm around them and explain, actually, that fancy CCTV over there, totally wasted, but you're actually a mobile CCTV unit. You're a mobile monitoring device, and everything. And you can glean so much information from the workers themselves. They just need to know how they can channel that in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Once they're armed with what to look for, now what to do about it. Who do I tell? Now, I've seen that guy again walking his dog at the same time again, and he doesn't live around here. Blah blah blah. I was wondering if I can get your view on, we've been talking to people in the covert security industry. And that was quite a new one on me. I was unaware that was going on to the extent that it is in farms and estates. And I'm guessing again that a lot of people out there just won't be aware that.
Yeah, the covert side of things is obviously it's a short term thing, but what it does do, it confirms your suspicions. So if you feel that you're being targeted, you'll put a covert team in an area, and they will, for a period of about a week, 5-7 days or something, 7 nights. What they'll do is they'll glean all the information about people traveling. They'll pick up, they can pick up little things like a vehicle that is, driven 4 or 5 times down that road, shock horror with different number plates and stuff. Little things that the average person would probably miss, but they pick up on because that's the way they're trained. But what they'll do is they'll confirm whether or not you're being targeted, if that makes sense. And if you are being targeted, these are the mitigation measures. So they are. I think for a full package, you need different elements to make it all work.
I think that's the magic. That's so important because it's not a one solution. It's not having insurance, although that's important. It's not having training, although that's important, or covert surveillance. It's a combination of all of those things. And God, you become so much safer if you've got all of that in place. You're probably going to sleep a lot better at night, knowing that, because there's a lot of money involved, isn't there? It's big bucks.
I mean, once people get up to speed with it, the benefits for the rural industry is just second to none. It just, their farms are being, they're a lot harder to target because people are switched on. If a guy walked up, because I mentioned this with GS, I said, right, how many times does a person come on your farm and somebody walk up to them and go, who the are you? Quite an aggressive challenge. And they said, oh no, we don't do that, because we don't know who it, and basically these people get ignored, so they're allowed to walk around the
Yeah.
farm. And it's, I know it comes across as being quite aggressive,
No, it's needed. Yeah,
but that's the security culture, and
it
that's what
is.
you need.
Yeah, it's got to be proactive and on the front foot. Yeah,
Yeah, if that is a criminal, and all of a sudden he's being confronted,
no,
they're going to go back now and go, actually, they're actually pretty switched on that farm.
yeah.
And then let's go and try Bob's farm down the road.
No,
See what we get from
so
there.
so very true. Yeah, yeah.
And it's that first impression that would determine whether or not your farm's going to be ripped off or not. And if you're allowing people to carry out their recce, yeah, that's fine. But if you've got quite quite robust farm workers who are a bit more savvy, not scared to go up and say, listen,
what are you doing here? Who are you? What do you want? And
then that can really have a massive impact on your business, if that makes sense.
It does, and it's so true, because it's that first impression. I mean, that example, we've spoken about this before. So I was on that farm, wasn't I, doing one of my videos, looking around at this particular moment. I was opening up the fuel store. I wasn't invited in. I was having, I know the farm owners. If I'd got caught, I wouldn't have been in prison. I was opening up the fuel. It was totally unannounced. No one knew I was there, not even the owner of the land. I was opening the fuel store, which was not padlocked. It was a big double skinned thing. And then I thought, here comes my problem. As a Land Rover started driving towards me, I thought, I've been rumbled. And I was then getting prepared to explain, I know such and such, the farm owner did it. But instead, what I did, I turned around and I waved. And the guy just went, give me a thumbs up, waved back, and carried on his way. But you're right, it's don't just wave at people if you don't know them. They're going to do that. They're going to brazen it out. Otherwise, they're going to get caught. So, but it's that, as you say, it's the culture.
That's exactly what we used to do. When we used to do undercover in Northern Ireland, we used to just embrace the environment you were in. And you bear in mind, you're dealing with bad people in bad estates. But if confidence and the balls to walk around and as if I live here, so, and you're waving at the bad people, giving them a thumbs up, nodding at them, winking, and they just look at you, and it puts them on the back foot.
Who's that? Be all right.
If there was 5 or 6 people stood on the corner in a hard estate, for instance, I would always cross the road towards them and walk past them. And the reason being is it puts them on the back foot, because if I try and scuttle past them, they grow their balls and they want to cross over and confront you. But if you go ahead towards them, it puts them on the back foot, and they just think that, okay then.
Exactly.
But trying to explain that to people, they're like that. You're mad.
Yeah.
But it's how criminals operate. They as you said, they go about the way as if,
raising it out.
I'm waving, blah, blah, blah. Now people, they buy into that. Okay. If I put my NFU vest on, people will buy into the fact that I'm NFU to be on the farm.
You blend in, it looks like you're meant to be there. We're running out of time again, Mick. We always do this, but it's great. It's been a fantastic little chat, mate. I really appreciate it. And let's